Greetings and welcome to Making Your Case, the art of persuading judges. Let's get right down to it. We're going to be going over this book again on part 3, and of course we'll have Black's Law Dictionary, 9th edition, at the ready to make sure we leave no word behind. With that said, let's get started with Making Your Case, the art of persuading judges. We left off last time on part 11. Yield indefensible terrain ostentatiously. Don't try to defend the indefensible. If a legal rule favoring your outcome is exceedingly difficult to square with facts of your case, forget about it. That being said, I just wanted to remind everybody that this is for entertainment educational purposes only, not to be used for any kind of lawful legal professional uses for your personal or professional life. Don't consider this for any kind of advice other than for the purposes of this broadcast and entertainment right now. Don't do this at home. Let's proceed. All right, so as we said here, if a legal rule favoring your outcome is exceedingly difficult to square with the facts of your case, forget about it. You'll have to consume an inordinate amount of argument time defending it against judges' attacks, and you will convey an appearance of unreasonableness, not to say desperation, that will damage your whole case. Rarely will all the points, both of fact and of law, be in your favor. Openly acknowledge the ones that are against you. In fact, if you're the appellant, run forth to meet the obvious ones. In your opening brief, raise them candidly and explain why they aren't dispositive. Don't leave it to your appellee to bring them to the court's attention. Fessing up at the outset carries 2 advantages. First, it avoids the impression that you have tried to sweep these unfavorable factors under the rug. Second, it demonstrates that, reasonable person that you are, you have carefully considered these matters, but don't regard them as significant. Grasp your nettles firmly. No matter how unfavorable the facts are, they will hurt you more if the court first learns them from your opponent. To gloss over a nasty portion of the record is not only somewhat less than fair to the court, it is definitely harmful to the case. Draw the string of unpleasant facts by presenting them yourself. That comes from Frederick Bernays Weiner. Suppose, however, that you're the appellee, and those damaging points have already been noted by your adversary. Don't pass them by in sullen silence. Make them a virtue of necessity. Boldly proclaim your acceptance of them, thereby demonstrating your fairness, your generosity, and your confidence in the strength of your case, and burnishing your image as an eminently reasonable advocate. We concede, Your Honor, that no notice was given in this case. The facts cannot be read otherwise. Huzzah, thinks the court, an even-handed fellow. You then go on, of course, to explain why the conceded point makes no difference why other factors outweigh it. Bear in mind that a weak argument does more than merely dilute your brief. It speaks poorly of your judgment, and thus reduces confidence in your other points. As the saying goes, it's like the 13th stroke of a clock, not only wrong in itself, but casting doubt on all that preceded it. Good saying there, the 13th stroke on a clock. Makes you question all the strokes preceding it. All right, that being said, anyone out there could give a heads up in the chat, know that everything is coming clear and intelligible on the YouTube end. I'd appreciate that. As we go to Part 12, take pains to select your best arguments. Concentrate your fire. The very most important step you will take in any presentation, whether before a trial or an appellate court, is selecting the arguments that you'll advance. A mediocre advocate defending a good position will beat an excellent advocate defending a bad position 9 times out of 10. We made up this statistic, but it's probably correct. Give considerable thought to what your arguments should be and talk it over with your associates. Bear in mind that in an appeal, trial counsel is not necessarily the best person to make the call. Extreme attachment to a rejected point can color one's judgment about which rulings lend themselves to effective challenge. Think of the poker player who can't bear to fold 3 aces even after it has come to seem very likely that the opponent has a full house. That's a good analogy there. Scattershot argument is ineffective. It gives the impression of weakness and desperation, and it insults the intelligence of the court. If you're not going to win on your stronger arguments, you surely won't win on your weaker ones. It is the skill of the lawyer to know which is which. Pick your best independent reasons why you should prevail, preferably no more than 3, and develop them fully. You might contend, for example, that 1. The breach of contract claim is barred by the statute of limitations. 2. The performance complied with the contract. And 3. Any deficiency in performance was accepted as adequate and hence waived. Of course, each point may be supported by several lines of argument. We must not always burden the judge with all the arguments we have discovered, since by doing so we shall at once bore him and render him less inclined to believe us. That's from Quintilian. Lawyers notoriously multiply their points, just as they notoriously multiply their verbs. Give, grant, bargain, sell, and convey. Some of the multifarious points often turn out to be just earlier points stated differently. Sometimes they result from including the pet theory of every lawyer on the case. Don't let that happen. Arm wrestle, if necessary, to see whose brainchild gets cut. And don't let the client dictate your choice. You are being paid for your judgment. On the surface, it might seem that a 10-point argument has been overanalyzed. In reality, it has been underanalyzed. Counsel has not taken the trouble to determine which arguments are strongest, or endured the pain of eliminating those that are the weakest. So you want 3 out of that 10. As we learned here, pick your best independent reasons why you should prevail. There you go. Best independent reasons why you should prevail. Preferably no more than 3, and develop them fully. All right, with that said, that's our action for Part 12. Let's go on to Part 13. And just checking in the chat to see if anyone's out there that's able to tap in here to let me know that we're coming through loud and clear. And we're on to Part 13. Communicate clearly and concisely. In an adversary system, it is your job to present clearly the law and the facts favoring your side of the case. It isn't the judge's job to piece the elements together from a wordy and confusing brief or argument. Quite often, judges won't take the trouble to make up for your deficiency, having neither the time nor the patience. The judges considering your case may have other cases in hand. They are impatient, unforgiving audience, with no desire to spend more time on your case than is necessary to get the right result. Never, never waste the court's time. Having summoned the courage to abandon feeble arguments, do not undo your accomplishment by presenting the points you address in a confused or needlessly expansive manner. They must be presented clearly and briskly and left behind as soon as their content has been conveyed, not lingered over like a fine glass of port. Iteration and embellishment are rarely part of successful legal argument. Length dissolves vehemence, and a more forceful effect is attained where much is said in a few words. Brevity is so useful in style that it is often more forceful not to say something. And that is from Demetrius. In a recent case before the Supreme Court of the United States, an appellant's brief took 10 pages before mentioning the critical fact in the case, then took another 7 pages to discuss peripheral matters before setting forth the legal rule that governed the case. No judge should have to cut through 17 pages of pulp to glimpse the core of the dispute. Well said. No judge should have to cut through 17 pages of pulp to glimpse the core of the dispute. To glimpse the core. Avoid the temptation to think that your brief is concise enough, so long as it comes under the page or word limit set forth in the court's rules, and more still the temptation to insert additional material in order to reach the page or word limit. Acquire a reputation as a lawyer who often comes in short of the limits. It's worth reading carefully what this lawyer has written, the judges think. There's never any padding. The power of brevity is not to be underestimated. A recent study confirms that what we all know from our own experience, people tend not to start reading what they cannot readily finish. And on that, very strange, I don't seem to see anyone in the chat here. We're going to leave off on part 14 because I don't believe a notification went out, but we'll continue next time with part 14. Always start with a statement of the main issue before fully stating the facts. So we'll be on that to the next one. I believe we got a pretty good amount here to digest from the actual text here from the parts we read from 11 through 13. And that includes the fact that the brevity is the best way to make your brief, as the name itself implies. And the fact that when you're arguing any case, you want to keep it down to your top arguments, and what they were saying here, your top 3 arguments. And to remember that the judges are impatient and would like to just do the right result as quickly as possible. And the more you are aiding in that matter, the more the judge would be open up to your interpretations, let's say, of the case, and more receptive to the core arguments here in a legal sense. So, great information here from some top judges, and it's good to know this just from the practicing area of it where the rubber does meet the road and years of experience comes in. And it's for us to make our own judgments how to use this information, how to interpret it, because as I said again, this is just for our educational entertainment purposes only. However, they are real life cases that are on record and do have a impact on the way the legal practice in this country does function. So it is worth knowing. That being said, I appreciate everyone that did show up, if they did show up. And if not, everyone that's watching on the replay, I salute to you. And I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.